The president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, called as successful his recent visit to Turkey and Saudi Arabia as it allowed Caracas to strengthen bilateral ties with Ankara and Riyadh. French trade unions resume a fresh date of mass demonstrations against President Emmanuel Macron's content pension reform. Russian authorities denounced that Ukrainian forces attacked the Kakhova hydroelectric power plant in the province of Kherson, which destroyed a dam, Volvo, and caused the flooding of the village of Novaya. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, called as successful his recent visit to Turkey and Saudi Arabia as it allows Caracas to strengthen bilateral ties with Ankara and Riyadh. The head of state expressed that the international work agenda in friendly countries was a success, allowing the established solid ties of mutual aid and exchange in strategic areas. The head of state pointed out that this shows that relations with Turkey and Saudi Arabia remains firm thanks to the union and cooperation in fostering a new world. For the last quarter of this year, the second Venezuelan-Saudi Arabia Joint Commission is expected to be held in the city of Riyadh with the objective of aligning a roadmap and our plan to unite the peoples. The Prime Minister of Cuba, Manuel Marrero Cruz, arrived on Tuesday in Russia for an official visit with the purpose of expanding and consolidating bilateral relations, which has been maintained uninterruptedly from the 60s to the present. Cuban Premier's trips to Moscow is part of the expansion and consolidation of ties, especially in economic and commercial issues. Marrero will stay from June the 6th to the 17th and will complete an extensive program which will include his participation in the city of Sochi in the Eurasian Intergovernmental Council of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum to begin on June the 14th. And this new rapprochement follows over 60 years of bilateral relations. Cuba and Russia continue to enhance ties. In April, both nations held sessions of Businesses Committee and the Intergovernmental Commission of both countries in the midst of such imposed by the West. A total of 14 agreements, contracts, and memorandums were signed between the two countries. Moscow and Havana also pondered and bolstered cooperation in the energy sphere, construction, agricultural, agro-industry, and tourism, among others. There are prosperous opportunities for businessmen and officials to the two countries. The Chinese embassy in Honduras officially opened on Monday, a significant milestone for the diplomatic relations. In this sense, Chinese and Honduran diplomats referred that the opening of the embassy represents a new chapter in the bilateral ties between the two nations. Over the past 2 months since the establishment of the diplomatic relations on March the 26th, Chinese diplomats has been focusing toward the occasion and engaged with various sectors in the South American country.
Opening of the Chinese embassy in Honduras is a milestone marking new achievements of our work in Honduras and also highlighting a step forward in bilateral relations.
In El Salvador, the Attorney General indicted on Monday former President Alfredo Cristiani for the massacre of 6 Jesuits priests of the Central American University 34 years ago. The prosecutor's office reported that according to the testimony of not This is witnesses Crisini was present at the site where the crime was decided, agreed to it, and authorized it. There are another 8 people accused, including Rodolfo Parker, former lawmaker and Defense Ministry currently at large, who had been incriminated by eyewitnesses of offering $1 million colonels in hush monies, so that Crisini's participation nor that of high military commander will be mentioned. On Tuesday, Peru's President Dina Boluarte testified before the National Prosecutor's Office and left after 3 hours. Dina Boluarte's statement was taken by the National Prosecutor Patricia Benavides. After about 3 hours, President Dina Boluarte left the National Prosecutor's Office, which summoned her to testify in the framework of the investigation against her for the death in the protests against her government in December 2022 and January 2023. Let's take a very first break now, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account, teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. In Ecuador, residents of the areas in the Esmeraldas province affected by recent heavy rains and flooding have urged President Lasso to provide them with humanitarian aid. In the last 12 days, the province of Esmeraldas has suffered non-stop rain associated with La Niña weather pattern. The overflowing of rivers has caused the loss of thousands of hectares of crops, 2,895 homes affected, and the evacuation of more than 500 people, while 1,467 people had to be rescued from their homes where the water reached a height of 3 meters. According to local authorities, members of the armed forces, the National Police, and the Fire Department have moved to the affected areas.
Unfortunately, I lost my home and I had nowhere to go. I came to the school to seek shelter and find authorities. There is no one who can help me. I'm a victim. I'm a disabled person. We were waiting for it to go down, but it did not go down, but rather rose and rose. When we realized it, we were stuck here. I had to put a ladder and get my family up there, and I climbed onto the roof because everything here was flooded.
In the U.S., former Vice President Mike Pence on Monday announced his candidacy as member of the Republican Party for the 2024 presidential elections, setting up the unusual scenario of two running mates turned rivals. Pence, who served as vice president during Donald Trump's administration, is known as a conservative evangelical politician and a fierce opponent of abortion. After years of loyalty to Trump, he broke away from his circle when a mob of Trump supporters violently stormed Congress on June 6, 2021 in Washington. Pence has criticized Trump from endangering his family and others that day. His entry into the electoral arena does little to alter a race in which Trump emerged as the favorite, followed by the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and then a handful of other candidates who are far behind in the pool. In the meantime, the 70-year-old activist, intellectual, and democratic socialist Cornel West said on Twitter that he will be a candidate for the 2024 contest. West confirmed he aimed to run for the Truth and Justice and will be part of the People's Party. West added that he will care about the quality of life, access to a job with a living wage, decent housing, women having control over their bodies, health care for all, and finally he points out that his government will be fighting to end poverty, mass incarceration, and in worse, an ecological collapse. China and the United States agreed to maintain communication, Wang Wenbin, a spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, said on Tuesday. According to the Foreign Ministry, Vice Foreign Minister Ma Shangshu and Yang Tao, Director General of the North American and Oceania Department, separately received Daniel Kintenbrink, Assistant Secretary of State for the East Asia and Pacific Affairs, and Sarah Brand, National Security Council Senior Director for China-Taiwan Affairs. The Chinese side stressed the position of the Taiwan issue and other important issues and agreed to maintain communication.
The two sides had candid, constructive, and fruitful communication on improving China-US relations and properly managing differences in accordance with the consensus of the two heads of state meeting in Bali last November. China stated its solemn position on Taiwan and other major issues of principle. Both sides agreed to continue to maintain communication.
French trade unions on Tuesday resumed a fresh date of mass demonstration against President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform. The mobilizations aim to pressure on the plenary session of the National Assembly to approve an appeal proposed by the opposition that will lead to an annulment of the pension reform. Meanwhile, the General Secretary of General Confederation of Labor, Sophie Bennett, stated that France is an increasingly authoritarian country since the government is attempting to prevent the National Assembly from voting on the proposal that seeks to overturn the pension reform. On Tuesday, Laurent Berger, trade union leader of the French Democratic Confederation of Labor, added that the unions will continue to mobilize on all issues related to wages, purchasing power, and standard of living.
The unions will continue to say that we are against this reform that is unfair. We'll continue to mobilize on all issues relating to pay, purchasing power, standard of living. We've talked about housing, which is a fundamental issue. Every time I'm away, I hear about housing, you see, and so we are going to continue to work as an inter-union group on proposals, and then on the issue of pensions. We'll see what happens the day after tomorrow at the National Assembly, but beyond that we are not going to kid ourselves. I would love to tell you that we are capable of mobilizing another 2 million people next week. That's not true, because you cannot lie to workers. They are clear-sighted. Unfortunately, this reform has been enacted and the decrees 64 years old have been published. It is a reality. This doesn't mean that we accept it. No, it doesn't mean that we accept it, but the way in which we don't accept it will change. The form of mobilization will not be the same as those we have seen up to now.
On Tuesday, Russian authorities denounced that Ukrainian forces executed a series of attacks on the Kakhova hydroelectric power plant in the Russian province of Kherson, which destroyed the dam valves and caused flooding of the village of Noya Kakhova. The mayor of the region, Vladimir Leontinev, described the aggression as a serious act of terrorism and specified that the shelling affected the upper part of the installation so that the water of the rivers rose up to 10 meters. The head of the Kherson government, Andrei Alensenkov, reported that 14 communities located near the Dnieper River, where more than 20,000 people live, are at risk of flooding. For his part, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the aim of the Ukrainian attack is to deprive Crimea of water. telesur English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and join our Latin American alternative broadcast. From financial break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Mohammed Haida al-Tamimi, a 3-year-old Palestinian boy shot by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank last week, died on Monday after days of agony. His father is still recovering from mild injuries he suffered during the same attack, while his mother claims justice not only for her little boy, but also for all the Palestinian children killed by Israeli forces.
My message to the world is that I demand an international trial. Enough is enough. Every day we hear that a child has been murdered or a whole family has been murdered. That's enough. He was wonderful. I gave birth to Mohammed on the 8th month and he was incubated for a month. Afterwards, we took him home. He was smart and funny. He was a good boy. Everyone loved him and he loved everyone and loved to play with everyone. He refused to come back home because he wanted to keep playing outside. God had chosen him. Thank God.
Iran's foreign ministry confirmed that it reopened diplomatic missions in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. In a statement, Foreign Ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani said that the Iranian embassy on the Saudi capital Riyadh officially reopened on Tuesday. Likewise, Kanani added that the Consulate General and Representative Office of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation in Jeddah will reopen on Wednesday. In this sense, that the Iranian government appointed Ali Raza Enayati as its ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Shortages of food, medicine, and especially water are becoming extremely acute as clashes escalate in Sudan capital just 2 days after a ceasefire deal expired. Fierce fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces has intensified as it spread across the capital area, comprising Khartoum, Omdurman, and Khartoum North, as well as the Darfur. The fighting has further exacerbated the already precarious humanitarian situation in the country, with power, gas, and communications being cut off, and food, water, and medicines running out.
It's laborious and dangerous to fetch water from the Nile River. If you drill a well even to a depth of 20 meters, you still can't get water. Now we can only pay for water. A small bottle of water might be free, but you have to pay to get more water. A large bottle of water costs 500 Sudanese pounds, and a bucket of water costs 4,000 Sudanese pounds.
The second session of the United Nations Habitat Assembly opened in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi, with delegates calling for sustainable urbanizations globally. With the theme of a sustainable urban future through inclusive and effective multilateralism, achieving the sustainable development goals in times of global crisis. The Assembly gathered leaders and ministers from 80 countries and over 1,000 representatives from United Nations agencies and other non-governmental organizations. During the 5-day meeting, the participants will discuss urban climate actions, affordable housing, localization of sustainable development goals, finance, and urban crisis recovery. On the sidelines of the Assembly, there will be 30 relevant events and an urban expo where more than 50 exhibitors will showcase innovative solutions to challenges facing cities, including waste pollution and inadequate access to shelters. The 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly held elections on Tuesday for 5 non-permanent seats of the Security Council for the 2024 to 2025 term. At this session, 5 seats were available according to the regular distribution among regions. After the voting procedure, the 5 countries selected were Algeria and Sierra Leone for the African group, Guyana for Latin American and Caribbean group, Slovenia for the Eastern European group, and lastly, the Republic of Korea for the Asia Pacific group. We have come to the end of this brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.